Hello my friends, today I'm coming at you with a free Halloween crochet tutorial. I'm going to be showing you guys step by step how to make your very own Frankencube, and I think he just turned out so cute and squishable, and I hope you love him as much as I do. If you're new here, hi, my name's Erica, welcome to my channel. I love any and everything yarn related, and here on my channel I like to do crochet tutorials, studio vlogs, test yarn things, all that fun stuff. So if any of that sounds up your alley, I hope you consider subscribing and hanging out with me a little bit more. A couple of things before we jump into the tutorial. This is also a written pattern that is up on my Instagram for free, so if that is more your jam, I'm going to include the link in the description box down below. Secondly, I would consider this to be a beginner-friendly tutorial. That being said, if you haven't done any crochet ever, I would recommend checking out some of the 101 resources I have linked in the description box below. I do try to go through some of the techniques in a little bit more depth than I did in my last tutorial for our beginner friends, but that being said, it's not a 101 tutorial. If you've never done a single crochet, you're going to want to go watch one of those videos before you start this tutorial. Lastly, I do have a slide coming up where I have all of the supplies listed out that you'll need to get started, so feel free to take a screenshot of that, and other than that, that is everything. Let's go ahead and get into working on Frankencube. We're going to start off round one with 4 single crochet into a magic ring. So let me break down the magic ring real quick in case you haven't done this before. This is what we're going to call the tail end of our yarn, and then the other end that is still attached to the ball we will call the working end. So we're going to take the tail end of the yarn and drape it over our hand just like so, and then we'll take our working end of our yarn and we're going to take it in between the middle finger and the ring finger and clamp those two shut so that way it is secured in place. All the while we are securing the tail end with our thumb like this. Now we will take the working end of the yarn and we'll form an X over that first tail end, and we'll bring it back over the hand, and let me flip this around and show you the other side. It should look like 2 bars. You're going to take the working end of the yarn and put it back between those 2 same fingers again and do the same clamping motion. So here's how it's going to look on the bottom side of the hand. When you turn it around, this is what it's going to look like on the other side. Then we will take our hook and we'll call this the first bar and the second bar. So first bar is closest to the hook. We're going to take the hook and go under the first bar. Then we will go to the second bar and pull the hook facing down to pull the second bar underneath the first bar, like so. Now stick with me because this is where it gets just a little bit tricky. I'm going to separate these two so that way you guys can see what's going on. We've got the yarn hooked underneath our crochet hook. We're going to do 1 full turn here. And then there are 2 bars here again. We're going to, so at this point, let's call it 1 loop on the hook. With these 2 bars up here at the top, we're going to repeat a similar motion with the second one. We're going to hook that second bar, pull it underneath our crochet hook, and then you want to pull it through that loop you just made on your hook. And this is what you will have for now. So you can pull the tail end out, and then to tighten this, you'll just want to pull down on the loop down here. And then to tighten what's on your hook, you can just pull on your working end. And this is how you make a magic ring. So I'm going to close this. Oh, also, if you want to make your circle smaller, you can just pull on the tail end of your yarn and it will close that circle right up. So to do 4 single crochet into the magic circle, you're going to want to work into your ring right here. And I also like to work with the tail being inside so I don't have to weave it in again later. So you're going to go into the magic circle, and then you will pick up your yarn that's on your working yarn, pull up a loop, and then you will make a single crochet by pulling another loop up. You're going to do this 4 times, so 4 single crochet into your magic circle, and then you can just pull your magic circle shut by pulling on that tail end there. And I like to put a stitch marker in the last single crochet so I don't get lost as I'm working my way back around, because when you have 4 single crochet in a magic ring, it can be a little bit challenging to keep count. So here we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. For round 2, we're going to do 3 single crochet into the same stitch 4 times around, so we'll end up with 12 stitches. So once you found your first single crochet, you're going to do 3 single crochet into the same stitch. 1, 2, and 3. And if you are having a hard time with figuring out which stitches you've already worked into, I would highly recommend putting a stitch marker in each of the stitches of round 1 before you go on to round 2, so that way you know exactly which ones you have increased into and which ones you haven't. So then we'll do this again 3 more times. 1, 2, 3 in the same stitch. And then repeat that 2 more times until I've made my way back to the last stitch. Round 3 will be 1 single crochet, so let's start with that for the first one. So just go 1 single crochet. Then we will do 3 single crochet in the same stitch, followed by 2 single crochet. So we'll go 1, 2, 3 in the same stitch, followed by 2 single crochet in 2 more stitches. We're not doing an increase for that one. We're going to repeat that sequence 2 more times for a total of 3. So we'll go 1, 2, 3 in the same stitch, followed by 2 single crochet. 1 single crochet, and then the next one in the next single crochet. Repeat that 1 more time. And then to finish this round out, after you've done that sequence 3 times, you're going to do 3 single crochet into the same stitch again. Followed by 1 single crochet into the last stitch. And you should end up with 20 stitches for this round. This is what your work should look like after round 3. You should always have a square. If you don't have a square, then you will want to go back and make sure you followed the pattern correctly. Round 4, we're going to start off with 2 single crochet. Followed by 3 single crochet in the same stitch. Followed by 4 single crochet regularly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to repeat that same sequence 2 more times. So 3 single crochet into the next stitch, followed by 4 regular single crochet. Once you've completed that repeat 3 times around, you're going to do 3 single crochet in the next stitch. Followed by 2 regular single crochet. At the end of round 4, you should have 28 stitches. Round 5, we'll start with 3 regular single crochet. Now we're going to do 3 single crochet in the same stitch, followed by 6 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you've completed that sequence once, you're going to repeat it again 2 more times for a total of 3 repeats. So you'll do the 3 single crochet in the same stitch followed by 6. Once you've repeated that sequence 3 times total, you're going to do another 3 single crochet in the next stitch. followed by 3 regular single crochet. Once you've finished round 5, you should have 36 single crochet around. For round 6, we're going to start with 4 regular single crochet. Then we'll do 3 single crochet in the next stitch, followed by 8 regular single crochet, and we're going to repeat this for a total of 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and if you haven't figured it out by now, your 3 single crochet should always be going into the corners, and then your 8 will be on the edges. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Repeat that same sequence 2 more times. Once you've completed that sequence 3 times, you're going to do 3 single crochet in the next stitch, followed by 4 single crochet to finish the round. And you should end up with a total of 44 stitches. Round 7 is going to be back loop only single crochet around for a count of 44. And let me show you how to find the back loop in case you're not familiar. So we've been working underneath 2 loops up until this point with the standard single crochet. To find the back loop, you're going to want to insert your hook into the middle of the stitch, and you'll just have 1 loop on your hook. Round 7 is going to be back loop only single crochet around for a total count of 44. Rounds 8 through 14 are just going to be single crochet around. You're not going to be doing any increases, so you should end up with 44 stitches total at the end of each round. Meet me back here before you finish round 14 because we are going to switch to the black yarn and I will show you guys how to do that. We're coming up on the last 2 stitches of round 14, so I want to show you guys how to change your color in for the black yarn now. So you can actually go ahead and just finish the second to last stitch as normal. But for the last stitch, we're going to start it off just like normal. We're going to pull up a loop and start the single crochet. However, instead of finishing it up with the green yarn, we're going to add our black yarn in by putting the tail end of the yarn hanging over the hook the back way and the working end of the yarn still over the front. And we're going to pull through both of those loops just like you would have done with the green yarn. Now for good measure, I like to break my green yarn here and then actually tie these 2 into a knot. So I tie both of my tail ends into a knot twice, just so that way I've got a little bit of extra security because I am not going to be weaving in ends personally. I have not had an issue with doing it this way, but I think it just makes it just a little bit more secure. For round 15, it calls for a waistcoat stitch all the way around, so you have 44 stitches. Now, if this is confusing to you, feel free to just do a regular single crochet. The appearance is not too different, and you can definitely get away with it, but I like to do the waistcoat stitch because it gives Frankencube a little bit more of that jagged hairline that we want. So to do a waistcoat stitch, we are going to, instead of working under those 2 bars like we typically do for a single crochet into this hole right here, we're actually going to be working in the stitch next to it. This is where we're typically working for now, or where we have been for our single crochet. For the waistcoat stitch, you want to find your single crochet from the row before and actually split it in half by going through the middle of that single crochet. So let me show you guys what that looks like. There's our single crochet. Instead of going through here, we're actually going to go in between the 2 legs of the single crochet from the last round. I will show you guys that one more time. Instead of going through here, which is what we would normally do, we will go through the 2 legs and split them of the single crochet that's right next to that hole. And you're going to have a little bit of a harder time getting your yarn through. That's just the nature of this stitch, but you can see that it creates a little bit more of that jaggedy hairline versus I'll show you what a regular single crochet would have looked like too. So, I mean, it's really up to you. These are the waistcoat stitches. These are the single crochet stitches. I think it adds a nice little touch to his hair, but It's totally up to you if it's worth it or not. The thing with the waistcoat stitch is if you crochet really tightly, you are going to have a really hard time getting your hook into the single crochet from the round previous. So if that's the case for you and you're having a really hard time, you have two options. Either skip the waistcoat stitch and do a single crochet round, which as I showed you guys earlier, it's not all that different. You can definitely do either way and it will still look really cute. Or go back, tear out to the last round and just make it a little bit looser. Nothing too crazy so that it's super noticeable in your work, but just a little looser so that way you can finagle your hook in and out. Once you finish round 15, we're going to move on to round 16, and this one kind of trips you up if you're reading the written pattern, but it's so much easier than it reads. It's literally just 2 single crochet, and then we're going to move the stitch marker. So 1, 2, and that is it. That is the end of the round 16. We are going to now move the stitch marker, and what this is doing is just shifting it over so that way our cube doesn't come out lopsided. So it's just shifting our starting point over 2 stitches. For round 17, we're going to be working in the back loop only all the way around. So we're going to start with 4 regular single crochet, 3, 4. Now we're going to do single crochet 3 together, and then we're going to do 8 single crochet. So to single crochet 3 together, we're going to be working in the next 1, 2, 3 stitches in the back loop only. So we're going to go through the back loop, pull up a loop. Instead of completing a single crochet here, we're going to go through the next back loop only of the next single crochet, pull up another loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook at this point. We're going to go into the next single crochet, pull up a loop again, once again working in the back loop only. And at this point, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over again and pull through all 4 loops. So that is a single crochet 3 together. Now we're going to do 8 single crochet in the back loop only. Once you've completed that sequence, you're going to repeat it 2 more times, so you've done it a total of 3 times. Once you've repeated that sequence a total of 3 times, we're going to do 1 more single crochet 3 together decrease, followed by 4 single crochet in the back loop only. You should end up with a total of 36 stitches here. Once you've finished round 17, this is a great place to stop and put your safety eyes in. I'm going to be using these 25mm glow-in-the-dark safety eyes that I painted myself. You're going to want to put them in between rows 11 and 12 at approximately 7 stitches apart. So we'll go ahead. Oh, and one other thing, I like to make sure I'm putting my eyes on the opposite side of the color change, so that way this little color change is in the back. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I'm going to stick my safety eyes in right there. And then I will go ahead and count 7 over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you could definitely eyeball this, but one thing I like to do for sure is stuff my Frankencube before I actually put the backings on to make sure that they are in the right place and in the front of the cube. So cute! For round 18, now we're going to do 3 single crochet, 2 and 3, followed by 3 single crochet together. For this round and for the following rounds, for my 3 single crochet together, I'm going to work through the front loop only to make it an invisible decrease. So do your 3 single crochet together through the front loop only. Then we're going to do 6 single crochet through both loops. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then that's the sequence that we're going to repeat 2 more times. So it will be 3 single crochet together followed by 6 single crochet. Once you've repeated that sequence a total of 3 times, you're now going to do another 3 single crochet together, followed by 3 regular single crochets. At the end of round 18, you should have 28 stitches. Round 19, we'll start with 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Then we're going to do single crochet 3 together, followed by 4 stitches. Repeat this sequence 3 total times. So 1, 2, 3 single crochet together, followed by 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is the sequence that you're going to repeat twice more. Once you've completed that sequence 3 times, you're going to single crochet 3 together, followed by 2 regular single crochet to finish the round, and you should end up with a total of 20 stitches. Now we're going to pause after round 19, and this is where we are going to start stuffing our Frankencube. Before you do that, have a look at the cube and just see, does it look like a cube? Is anything twisted or in the wrong place? If so, you'll want to tear back and fix that error. But if everything is looking good, you can go ahead and start adding stuffing to your Frankencube. And I just like to break up my stuffing and make sure that it's in all of the corners kind of evenly and stuff it pretty firmly. But this is not going to be the only time we add stuffing, so don't worry about getting it stuffed to the very brim. Once you are pretty satisfied with how he looks stuffed up, you can move on to round 20. And for round 20, we're going to start with 1 single crochet, followed by single crochet 3 together with 2 single crochet after, and repeat that sequence 3 times. So we'll go front loop only, do your single crochet 3 together decrease, then we'll do 2 single crochet, and that's the sequence that you're going to repeat 3 times around. Once you finish that sequence 3 times, you're going to do a single crochet 3 together, followed by 1 single crochet. So 1, 2, if I can get it in, 2 and 3, single crochet together, followed by your last single crochet in this round, and you'll end up with a total of 12 stitches here. Right before we finish off round 21, this is another great place to stop and add more stuffing if you'd like. You don't need to overstuff him because we are going to flatten him down so he is a cube shape, but I like to make sure he's a little bit chubby, and you can kind of double check your work by squishing it down a little bit to make sure you like what the shape is going to look like. But I like to add just a little bit more stuffing at this point before we do our final decrease round. Now for round 20, we are going to do single crochet 3 together and repeat this 4 times around. So it's the same exact decrease that we have been doing together this entire time in the black. You're just going to do that 4 times around, and so you will end up with 4 stitches at the end, remembering to work through the front loop only for an invisible decrease. So once you're done with the decrease round of 21, you can go ahead and fasten your yarn off, but make sure you leave a long enough tail end so that we can weave back and forth a couple of times. We're going to take the tail end of the yarn and thread it through our darning needle, and then you're going to look for your front loops only of the 4 single crochets that were left in your last round, and you're going to just weave your darning needle through those loops to close up your amigurumi. So repeat that 4 total times, and then to close it up, you're just going to pull on that yarn and it should close your hole up so that way you're not seeing any stuffing anymore. And then to flatten him so that he's more of a cube, what I like to do is take my darning needle and go over about a stitch and push it through down to the bottom of my Frankencube, so that way the needle's coming out a little bit to the right of center. Then we're just going to pull that through, And then we're going to repeat it to go back up through the black. So go over about a stitch, stick your needle in there, and then we are going to look up from the other side and see where the needle comes through this time. And there it is. And you can just kind of tug on it and it should flatten your cube a little bit. So that way he's a little bit more of a cube shape instead of being so tall and fluffy. And you can repeat that one more time if you'd like, or if that's good enough for you, you can go ahead and weave your end in. I'm going to repeat it one more time personally. And then after that, I will just go ahead and weave in my yarn through my plushie by running it back and forth a couple of times. I left a little bit too short of a tail. Make sure you guys leave a longer tail, but I do think it'll be fine. I'm just going to tuck this tail end into my plushie somewhere. Now we've got the bulk of Mr. Frankencube done here. We'll move on to working on the bolts now. So for the bolts, we're going to make 2 of these. So using the gray yarn for round 1, we're going to do 4 single crochet into the magic circle. So make your magic circle just like we did for Frankencube, and if you need to go back and watch that part of the video, it's the exact same process. And we're going to do 4 single crochet into our magic circle. Now, if you have a keen eye, you'll notice that this is a different yarn from what we were using for Frankencube. I didn't have the same yarn in gray, so I'm using what I have on hand. So hopefully you guys can still see it. Next, we're going to do an increase 4 times around for round 2. So this will give us a total of 8 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to do 2 single crochet in each of those to increase around. 1, 2. Once you're done with round 2 and you have 8 stitches, you're going to do back loop only single crochet around, and you're going to end up with a total of 8 stitches. And I like to make sure that my work is turned inside out at this point, because otherwise it's a little bit hard to see what's happening. But we're going to just work into the back loop only, doing 8 single crochet around. Round 4 will just be single crochet around for a total of 8. Under both loops for this one, by the way. We're not doing back loop only for this one. For round 5, we are going to be doing a decrease around 4 times. So this is very similar to our single crochet 3 together, but we're going to just do it twice. So it's really single crochet 2 together. So going through the front loop, pull up a loop. Don't go all the way through like you're doing a single crochet. Move over to the next stitch, pull up a loop again, and you'll have 3 loops on your hook and pull through all 3. So instead of doing 3, we're just doing 2. Repeat this around 4 total times. Once you're done with round 5, we're going to just single crochet around for round 6, and you'll end up with 4 stitches total. It gets a little bit tricky at this point just because you're kind of like crocheting on a really small, tight circle, but just do your best and end up with 4 total stitches. Once you are done with round 6, you're going to want to cut off, remember, another long-ish tail because we're going to do something similar. We are not going to stuff this bolt though. Instead, what we're going to do, since it's so small, we're just going to take our darning needle and follow a similar process to what we did for Frankencube. We're going to go through the center of the bolt and take the tail end to the other end and just pull it through. And then we will go over 1 stitch just like we did at the bottom of Frankencube. And weave it back through the same place where we entered the first time and pull it through. And what that does is just makes it a little bit more of a bolt shape instead of having like a long rounded end. And that is how you create the first bolt. You're going to repeat that process one more time, and then we're going to sew them to his head. So to attach the bolt to Frankencube, we're going to want to go between rows 8 and 11. So I'll start at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're going to want to fasten our bolt somewhere between these 3 rows right here. So what I like to do is look at the center of the side of the face that we're attaching the bolt to. And I will just take my darning needle and put it through about 2 stitches to attach the bolt. Now you can pull this and make sure that it's located somewhere that you actually like. I've already done one of them, so I want to make sure they're evenly spaced out, and this looks pretty good to me. So then I can go ahead and work on seaming it to my project. So the way I do this is I will come up through the bottom of the bolt where we had those last 4 single crochets in round 6 and pull the thread or the yarn through. Then I will come through Frankencube's head and grab a little bit of him and come down to the next single crochet. And then we will repeat that again. So flip the bolt up, look for somewhere where your single crochet would have been. It's okay if it's not perfect. Fluffy yarn tends to hide it. If you're working with like an acrylic weight 4 yarn, you do have to be a bit more careful, but just keep repeating that, grabbing a little bit of the head and then going in through the center of the bolt. And then to finish it off, to hide my yarn tail and to fasten it in, I like to just weave it through Frankencube's head a few times so that way it kind of has some friction with the stuffing and it's not going to just come out. When you do this, make sure you're going through the same hole that you're coming out of so that way you're not creating any weird indentations like I just did right there. It looks like maybe I did. To shape it, remember we did go over a stitch, but when you're fastening or when you're hiding your ends in, you don't want to do that. So now I'm satisfied with the security of that. I will just go ahead and snip that off. And all that's left to do now is to embroider the face on. So for seaming on the details, I have my number 4 cotton yarn on my darning needle already. I'm going to do the mouth first, and I'm going to do the 2 of them separately, the scar and the mouth. So I'll come in by the, let's come in by the right eyeball, and we are going to just find the place where we want the right of our mouth to be. So we're going to enter it in about 1 stitch over from the eyeball. And then I'm going to do about 2 stitches over and enter in. And I will come back out through that same hole that I started in. And then if I'm happy with the way that my mouth looks, then I will go ahead and, this is what I like to do, I tie a knot. And then we will just go ahead and weave this through so that way it's secured, kind of similar to what we did with the ends of the bolts. This is just how I like to do my mouths. I like it better than doing like the V, but if you don't like how loose it is, you can always put a little dot of fabric glue on it and that will keep it in place. So now we're gonna move on to the scar. So we're going to thread the darning needle again. And I think I'm going to do the scar on the right side of his face because it looks like I might have a little bit more room over here. So I'm going to enter from about above the bolt and come down to where I want the scar to end on the side of his face. So I think maybe I'll even do a little bit more of an exaggerated scar here. So I come down about next to the eyeball. Then I will come up to wherever I want the scar to end at the top. And I will come back down to where I want the first stitch to start. And you'll see when I go through, it'll make a little bit more sense if you watch, I think. So now we've got the scar added. And make sure you like the placement of it and how long it is. And if you do, then you can just take the yarn from where it came from and enter across directly across that big scar. And then go up to where you want the next stitch to start. And that will just create an adorable little stitch over our scar. And we'll repeat that process a couple more times. And it's okay if it's not perfect. Try to remember that Frankenstein was created in a lab. And so he's kind of cobbled together anyway, so I think the less perfect, the more authentic to the Frankenstein vibe you got. And I actually think the crooked stitches look kind of cute. So that's my last stitch there. And yeah, I'm super happy with the placement of that. So we're going to repeat the same process that we did with the mouth. Just make sure that you're coming through the exact same hole that you started in. And then you can tie these two ends together and weave them in just like we just did. And once you're done adding in the face details, you are officially done with your little Frankencube. And I just think he is so precious and squishable. Look at him.